So CM Punk has responded to the John Oliver HBO segment on the criticizing WWE segment that he did. Oh man, I can barely even speak. Listen, welcome back to the review space, and I want to talk about this crazy story. Listen, it's on WrestlingInc.com, and I just recently found out about this. You know, I haven't kept up with wrestling news for the last couple of days, and I am just finding out about this, trying to look up as much information as I can about this. So apparently, CM Punk knows about the John Oliver segment, and basically what happened was, well, you guys know, I'm pretty sure that everybody pretty much knows what happened, but in case you didn't know, John Oliver on his famous, I think it's Last Week Tonight on the John Oliver Show, which is a really popular, TV show. I guess it airs on HBO, although the only way that I see it is on YouTube. I catch it on YouTube every now and then, the little segments that he would have. The show has been on for the past, I would say, about 5 years now. About 5 years, since 2014 or so. And he's had, really famous, multi-million viewership, multi-million rating segments that's been uploaded on YouTube. He's had segments about FIFA, where he called out FIFA's practices. He's called out a lot of different things. Of course, the Trump administration. He's called out many different types of relatively controversial topics, things that have to do with safety and health and politics, and just really questionable practices, all the way from somebody like Dr. Oz prescribing or suggesting certain supplements that are supposedly magical drugs or magical pills or whatever, and then John Oliver would call him out on it, oh yeah, well you're just talking a bunch of BS, buddy, and so John Oliver has been largely kind of a acclaimed guy. People look at him as oh, this guy tells the truth. This guy's somebody that calls out. He'll call out the NRA TV, for example, the National Rifle Association TV network or TV channel, where they're just basically, just a network that's peddling and fear-mongering a lot of Americans into buying, gun products and guns and ammunition and things like that. And so John Oliver, whether you like him or not, whether you love him or hate him, and him also being a part of that Jon Stewart kind of camp, because he came from that, Daily Show with Jon Stewart crew, whether you like him or not, whether you're a right-winger or a left-winger, conservative or more of a liberal type, I do find his segments very entertaining. I generally enjoy him. I have a playlist full of his videos, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says or every single approach to his videos, because he does tend to be a little bit left. He's a little too left-leaning, or kind of leftist-leaning, or liberal-leaning, or demo-leaning. So he's got that bias already. So I'm not really 100% always on point with him on that. I feel like it is biased and a little too, one-sided. But that being said, he's had some really informational stuff, and so a lot of his videos are really interesting, like the stuff that he did with that guy that ended up in Russia. He ended up getting exiled to Russia. The guy that gosh, what was his name again? My gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. It's kind of ironic because John Oliver did a segment on him so that people could remember him. They had a movie about him. But anyway, so basically John Oliver criticized WWE. Okay, so we talked about how WWE basically they would employ these particular wrestlers, but the wrestlers would be listed as independent contractors, and they were not given benefits, like health benefits and things like that. They're not given insurance. I don't think they're given insurance by the WWE. So there's a lot of health risks that isn't covered by WWE. And John Oliver, I think, from what I understand, ended up using CM Punk as an example. That infamous CM Punk podcast that he did with Colt Cabana, talking about his health issues and the whole Z-Pack thing given to him by the doctor of WWE, because at the time I think he had a staph infection, and so he was really concerned with that, and he didn't know. I don't think he knew at the time that he had a staph infection or MRSA at the time, and he was basically he was feeling ill. He was feeling sick. And so the only thing that the medical staff at WWE did was, hey, here's a Z-Pack. Here you go. Take this Z-Pack, and we'll give you all these different Z-Packs, and, hopefully you get better. Antibiotics. And so CM Punk was like, listen, I've been on antibiotics for months, and this isn't going away. I want you to cut out this, this lump on my back, because he ended up getting a lump on his back, which ultimately would end up turning purple, and that would become the MRSA staph infection that he's had for months and months and months, and that kind of ultimately led to the falling out. A big part of why he fell out of WWE, and he kind of soured on his run in WWE. And it's like, he was basically like, why am I still doing this? Why am I still working for this company that won't even treat me properly, that won't fix my health? You know what I mean? Take care of me health-wise. And so, I saw bits and parts of the John Oliver piece, the segment. I didn't see the whole thing. I only saw a small clip of it on, I think ET Canada had a little segment on it. They talked about it, and they showed a brief little clip of it regarding, John Oliver was talking about it, and he showed the Vince McMahon interview and all that. So anyway, on WrestlingInc.com, this is what they mentioned. So let's take a look at what they said on this article at WrestlingInc.com. CM Punk commented on John Oliver's piece on HBO's Last Week Tonight, where the comedian called out WWE for how they treat their talent and classify them as independent contractors. At the 12:35 mark of the video, and by the way, the video is not uploaded anymore. I don't know. I guess it was taken down for maybe copyright reasons or maybe some other reason. Maybe even WWE wanted to take it down. Who knows? But anyway, Oliver pointed out how CM Punk said that he was given Z-Packs by WWE medical staff in 2013, saying that he was given so many Z-Packs that he SHIT his pants on an episode of SmackDown. Oliver noted that they actually found the actual SmackDown episode, and while they didn't air Punk's accident, they showed a picture of his face as it was happening. After SmackDown had aired at the time, Punk had tweeted out, "Just SHIT my britches on SmackDown. Please RT." I guess that would mean please retweet. CM Punk played off his original tweet, writing, "I SHIT my britches. Please RT. Last week tonight. I love you. I am John Oliver." As we previously reported, WWE sent us a statement regarding that segment, claiming that Oliver ignored the facts, quote-unquote, and saying that they had responded to the, quote-unquote, producers, refuting every point in his one-sided presentation. Below is WWE's full statement, as well as CM Punk's tweet. So this is according to, this is from WrestlingInc.com, as was given to them by WWE. The WWE sent them a statement, and this is what it said. John Oliver ignores facts. John Oliver is clearly a clever and humorous entertainer. However, the subject matter covered in his WWE segment is no laughing matter. Prior to airing, WWE responded to his producers, refuting every point in his one-sided presentation. John Oliver simply ignored the facts. The health and wellness of our performers is the single most important aspect of our business, and we have a comprehensive, long-standing talent wellness program. We invite John Oliver to attend WrestleMania. They got to get that cheap plug in there. This Sunday to learn more about our company. I love it. I love how they had to include a cheap plug, a cheap little, like, shameless plug promotion for WrestleMania 35 and saying, well, we want to invite John Oliver, as if that's going to do anything, you know what I mean? Like, to change people's minds, I guess, to like, want to sway John Oliver to be on their side. I don't know. And then and we got the coach at CM Punk, April 1st, 2019. I just SHIT my britches, please RT. Last week tonight, I love you. I am John Oliver, and yeah, that's basically just a tweet. So, okay, I've mentioned before that basically what Vince McMahon is, and basically what a wrestling promoter is they're basically a slave driver. That's what they are. From their approach, their mentality, they're a slave driver, because what they do is they promote wrestlers. You know, they promote performers, basically. It is, in fact, a traveling circus act. You know, it's a traveling circus show. So that's what professional wrestling is. And I don't use that in a necessarily a derogatory way, but what I'm saying is that's what it is. It's a traveling stunt show mixed with like a live action soap opera with a lot of action elements, right? That's what it is. That's what it is. It's not real sports combat, you know, or something like an UFC MMA. It's not like that in terms of legitimate combat, although there are similarities, I can't even speak, between, you know, something like fake wrestling or work wrestling and something like sports, where it's still promoting something. They're promoting a product. They're promoting live action entertainment to a consumer fan base that will potentially buy tickets, buy merchandise, buy t-shirts, buy video games that's related to that product, whether it's the NFL, UFC, FIFA, the NBA, the NHL, or the WWE, and so on and so on and so forth. So I understand that there's going to be those comparisons, but the reality is that WWE is so much more. Obviously, it's a work. It's fake. It's basically predetermined. So you got these fake, you know, wrestlers that's basically doing their thing, and it's very entertaining. I mean, obviously, I love wrestling. I like watching it. I enjoy it. I enjoy supporting some of it and buying the merchandise and, you know, those kind of things, video games, etc. But because it's a traveling circus show and they don't have seasons, they don't have off seasons, I should say, where wrestlers get some time off, that's just what it is. It's a traveling circus show year round. You know, so imagine a year-long soap opera where they don't really have time off, or, you know, even on TV, like the shows are never ending. You know, or even something like anime, you know, Japanese anime, which is relatively popular. You know, it started to get really popular and hot when I was a kid back in the 90s. And, you know, I remember growing up on TV shows like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Sailor Moon and those kind of things, Inuyasha, etc. Where, you know, Naruto, there's another one, Naruto, where it was ongoing. You know, it kept going and going and going and going and going for years and years and years, and they would have to make up stories as they went along. You know, Dragon Ball Z was infamous for making up stories as they went along, because they wanted to keep it going and keep it going and keep making money off of it and keep making money off of it. You know, because the franchise was so popular in the 90s. It became so hot and so famous and so popular that they had to keep creating product. They have to keep creating TV shows and episodes so that they can keep generating ad revenue. You know, it's all about ad revenue and promoting the merchandise and promoting the product. So they wanted to keep making money off of it. WWE is the same way. You know, the same exact same way. Wrestling is the same way, but probably even more, obviously a lot more health risks and a lot more physically demanding. Because, you know, you can compare a completely fabricated fictional TV show in other entertainment like anime or a soap opera, but the actual actors or voice actors, etc., are not. It's not really a huge physical risk. It's not a huge, you know, physically damaging thing where the guys are getting injured all the time. They're falling off, you know, the top rope, and they're basically slamming their bodies in the middle of the ring on the canvas, where they're taking these bumps. They're taking year-long, year-round bumps. They're on the road all the time, so they got these brutal, really grueling road schedules. They're always on the road. They're always physically bumping and taking damages and taking a toll on their body. And another big factor is that when John Oliver, and basically the idea is that, listen, a lot of wrestlers are passing away at really young ages. You know, a lot of them don't even make it past the age of 50. You know, past 50 or 60 years old. A lot of them are passing away relatively younger than the average age. You know what I'm saying? So they're going away real quick. And you take a look at all the wrestlers that's passed away in the past 10, 15, 20 years. You know, when I was a kid back in the late 90s, it was guys like Brian Pillman and Owen Hart, you know, very controversial. And then all throughout the 2000s, all the way from Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and all those guys, every single one of them, Umaga and Lance Cade, and, you know what I'm saying, so many different names over the years, Mitsaru Misawa, you know what I'm saying, all these guys that suffered really debilitating injuries, you know, guys like Hayabusa. You know, really dangerous risks. And more recently, in the past, you know, 3 or 4 years, guys like Shibata, you know, in New Japan Pro Wrestling, who was so injured that he couldn't, like, wrestle anymore. Yeah, and of course with WWE, individuals like Paige. Look at Paige, the injury that she suffered from Sasha Banks. I think it was in just a little over a year ago in late 2017 against Sasha Banks in that little like house show match. It wasn't even a televised match; it was a house show match, and so she was basically forced into retirement. And I think I even made a video, top 10 pro wrestlers that were forced to retire due to injury. And that was just a really, really small example. And I'm not even mentioning the wrestlers that passed away, that specifically passed away, like a Vader and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. These guys that are relatively younger in age, and yet they pass away so quickly. Guys like Bam Bam Bigelow and, Macho Man Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah! I mean, it's really a miracle that some of these guys are still alive. It's an absolute miracle that guys like Scott Hall and guys like Kevin Nash and guys like X-Pac and guys like Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, I'm saying, these kind of guys that took so much toll on their bodies after so many years. Guys like Bret Hart even, I'm saying, guys who've been around for so long. And, not to say that there haven't been health scares. There's been health scares with guys like Bret and guys like Ric Flair. I'm saying, these past like couple of years. It's been very risky. Again, mentioning guys that's passed away. Guys like, what's his name? Pero Aguayo Jr., I think. That was just a few years ago. I'm saying? When he was wrestling, I think it was Rey Mysterio and a bunch of other guys. And, man, that was brutal to watch. Oh, man. But anyway, so that was a big topic. That's a huge controversial issue too, and I think the idea was that I think John Oliver might have talked about it in the video, is that these guys passing away so young because of the health risks that they take with pro wrestling, including the WWE. And I would even say WWE is a little bit more on the safer style. I'm saying? They take a little bit less risks, at least with the non-205 Live guys. Maybe that's starting to change a little bit with the high-flying newer guys coming in, guys like a Ricochet and those kind of guys. That's like, the 205 Live type guys where they're doing a lot higher risks. Mustafa Ali, those kind of guys where they are doing more high-risk maneuvers. But for a long time, many years during the especially the mid-late 2000s, and when the PG era really kicked in, the in-ring wrestling style was a lot more slowed down and toned down in WWE. You know what I'm saying? Because they wanted to slow it down a little bit and make it a little bit easier on the wrestlers, I guess, and have a lot less risks. And because they're always on the road anyway, they kind of wanted to, take a little bit of that physical edge off of the wrestlers, if just for, minuscule effect. But still, they wanted to slow down the in-ring style a little bit. A lot more rest holds and headlocks and those kind of things, and not as many high risks. So there are certain things that WWE did, but of course with John Oliver, he's like, listen, like, they're not getting insurance and they're not being taken care of health-wise to WWE's full potential, and WWE's basically unwilling to spend a lot of money on basically taking care of the health of their individual wrestlers. So I think what he was saying was, what John Oliver was saying was that it contributes, this kind of lifestyle overall contributes to the earlier demise of these wrestlers, the earlier passing away of these individual wrestlers. Guys like an Umaga, guys like a Vader and Jim Neidhart, the time that they spent in wrestling, the time that they spent in the ring, and even guys like Test, who again passed away after so many years in the business. That takes a toll on their bodies. And of course, some of these guys were addicted to drugs and pills and those kind of things. Somebody like a Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was let go by WWE because of health issues. I mean, it was such a risky thing for them to have him stay on the roster in that mid-2000s where he was addicted to pills, and he was a health risk. He could have, passed away under their roster, where he was he's an American hero, an Olympic champion, Olympic gold medalist, you know what I'm saying? So this guy is a national hero. And then to have him potentially pass away in the mid-late 2000s, under their watch, under their roster, would have been a huge big deal. It would have been like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, and then potentially Kurt Angle. Like, oh my God, you know what I mean? So you can see why they wanted to let him go, and only just recently they took him back. So, you know, it's very risky health-wise anyway. I think like the lifestyle of a wrestler, of a professional wrestler, an in-ring performer, is already incredibly risky, very dangerous, even if they can be like the safest worker, the safest in-ring performer, the safest pro wrestler who does everything right, who takes the right bumps and, you know, kind of plays it a little bit more safe. That still takes a toll on their bodies. You know what I'm saying? That still damages their health. You know, it takes a toll on their you know, aching muscles, you know, injuries, and they got to take time off and surgeries and things like that. And so I think what John Oliver was getting at was that WWE was at least partially at fault, and it's like, why is Vince McMahon not taking better care of these performers in terms of giving them insurance? And I would imagine that in Vince McMahon's point of view as a promoter, it would just be so financially draining on him. It would be so expensive for him, and he would lose a lot of money. So obviously, you know, he's a incredibly wealthy guy. He didn't become rich and wealthy just for giving away money and like giving away like insurance and all these kind of things. So you can kind of understand why he'd be very, very defensive. Like I said, this guy is a slave driver. He's a wrestling promoter. That's the mentality of these guys, is to exploit these performers and put them out there as as performing monkeys, you know, as performing circus animals. That's what they are. You know, like back in the day, you'd hear of like, what is it? I think it's like Barnum and Bailey or whatever, and they would, I think that was the circus act where they would have like animals, whether it was like lions and tigers or whatever, or elephants, and they would, you know, exploit these animals, and they would, you know, whip them, they would physically abuse them, and they were basically really, in a lot of ways, kind of mistreated these animals. And, you know, it's not just Barnum and Bailey, but I'm sure other circuses as well, you know, like these animal circuses where they have elephant shows and you know, lions and tigers and bears and those kind of things, where they exploit their workers, you know, they exploit their attraction, where they would just use them as like, you know, as just, that's the show. This is our product, and we're going to treat them like they're basically our slaves. We can do whatever we want with them. We train them a certain way, and if they don't act right, or if they don't perform properly, then we don't even, like, you know, we don't even treat them properly. We don't even treat them, you know, it's almost like a pimp treating his you know, his bottom bitch as like, oh, we're going to treat this, but you're still working for a pimp, you know what I'm saying? You're still a woman that's selling your body to other men, and you're making money for this, you know, pimp guy who's basically taking your money anyway, and he's not the one who's putting his health and his risk out, his life at risk out there, you know? So you got women being exploited by pimps, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's a very dangerous situation anyway. It's very risky to begin with. It's a very dangerous lifestyle, and you know, like, you have to understand too, like, pro wrestling is a really old form of entertainment. You know, wrestling's been around since at least the early 1900s, if not the late 1800s, as an actual business, you know, professional wrestling, where it originated from the carny shows, you know, the carnivals and all that, a carnival side attraction where it would just be a part of the show, you know, kind of like the freak show. You would have the bearded lady, or the man with like 3 arms, or the man with 3 legs, or, you know, the Siamese twins, and, you know what I'm saying, they would just be an attraction. They would be paid performers, and they would just be a part of the traveling circus act, but they're not necessarily treated the best unless they're like the top performers, the top earners, I should say, the bottom bitch, the person that's making the company the most money, you know, the biggest attraction. You know, I'm sure they probably get treated a little bit better than the other circus performers, but, you know, it's still, like, overall a very kind of risky thing, especially with pro wrestling, because the pro wrestling thing is very health damaging, very risky in terms of health. And you have somebody like Vince McMahon, who has that promoter's mentality of, like, I can do whatever I want, and if, you know, I'm the one who's investing my money into these people, into these attractions anyway, and so I'm the one who's basically spending the money to promote everything and create a business. whether it's creating WWE films and doing a partnership with 2K, or back in the day THQ, to make video games and merchandise and make wrestling really internationally popular around the world and have that distribution. He's behind that, and I understand that he had a vision and he became incredibly successful as a wrestling promoter. But at the same time, I can understand why John Oliver and many other people would criticize WWE for not having health insurance for their workers, and they would classify them as independent contractors, where they basically have no responsibility. It's almost like, well, they're not even a part of our. There's no what is it, like a union? There's no union by the workers, so they don't have any leverage. They don't have any power, and they don't get health benefits. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing like that with sports entertainment, with pro wrestling. All right, so, and yeah, again, CM Punk's contribution to this is that he was glad that John Oliver made a reference to him. I feel like he probably feels validated in a lot of ways. He probably feels good, like holy crap, my comments on that podcast that I did well over 4 years ago is now being taken seriously, or somebody's using it as an example of how bad the WWE is. Finally, this conversation is being brought up again, and finally the stuff that he said on Colt Cabana's podcast is making an impact. It's making an influence. So, and I'm sure CM Punk is really stoked with that idea. He's really happy, holy smokes, this is dope, this is amazing. I'm glad that somebody at least somebody noticed it, and somebody's talking about it now in the mainstream, and has basically made a big deal about it. You know what I'm saying? It's a big story. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the comments at Wrestling Inc.'s little comment section. Let's see what the other people had to say about it. Let's go check it out. So the King of Style, he said, AEW needs to offer this guy big money to return. So I guess in reference to CM Punk. Hey, listen, CM Punk going to AEW. I mean, I'm not really clamoring him to go there. I wouldn't be mad at it. I wouldn't be against it, obviously. I think it would be a good piece of business for AEW to have that big name. And it's like, CM Punk returns to wrestling. He goes back to wrestling, but he goes to AEW. And so that's big news for them, and I think a lot of people will want to at least check that out and see what's going on with AEW. That would be a good reason. As far as Punk coming back to wrestling, I don't really care. I was never the biggest CM Punk mark. I mean, I respected some of the stuff that he did as far as in his work, and the stuff that his body of work and all that, and the pipe bombs and all that was good, but I'm not crazy about him going back to wrestling because, I was never that big of a fan anyway, and I think they should just focus on the younger guys. They should focus on their current stars. I think he could definitely contribute if CM Punk does go to AEW, but man, it would be good for the fans. It would be good for his fans. It would be good for AEW, but personally for me, I was never that crazy about him, so it's whatever to me. You know what I'm saying? He could go there, and if he wants to get that big payday, that's cool, but I'm not going crazy oh, we gotta have him there. I'm not gonna watch AEW just because CM Punk is not there. That's not the case at all. I don't really care otherwise. I don't even have a dream match with CM Punk in AEW. Maybe I guess him having a promo segment with maybe Pentagon Jr. or Penta El Zero M, whatever his name is, in AEW. That would be kind of cool. He'd be cutting an angry promo, Pentagon in Spanish, because he's Mexican. But then he's really good on the mic, and he could go back and forth with CM Punk, and Punk could cut a promo back at him in English, and that would be kind of it'd just be kind of entertaining, for me. All right. So, Not the Crusher said, not surprised, a scumbag like Punk likes Oliver. Wow. Not surprised, a scumbag like CM Punk likes Oliver. So, maybe this guy's a little bit of an anti-John Oliver kind of guy. Well, I mean, I don't know why. I don't know if I call CM Punk a scumbag per se. I I don't know, but CM Punk is just a guy who lost in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? He lost a couple of times, and he made wrestling look really bad. So that was kind of embarrassing, and that made him, that was kind of a bad move. It just made him look so weak, and it made wrestling look so horrible because he's a former WWE champion and all that. He's supposed to be like this tough guy, and he's claimed to be such a tough guy for so many years, and he goes to UFC and gets bodied not once but twice. So, I wouldn't necessarily call him a scumbag, but I call him more of a, I call him more of like a delusional con artist, somebody who knows how to get a lot of money out of people, and he's like really good at fooling people and working the fans, but not necessarily a scumbag. All right, David Jones, an hour ago from David Jones says, I enjoyed the segment and all my friends have sent it to me to watch. I did actually feel a bit bamboozled, though, when it switched from wrestling is awesome to the WWE is evil. I agree that WWE still should continuously improve. It's hard though, because the fruits of their labor takes a while to realize. One would hope that the generation of performers will live longer, lasting, fulfilling lives, in large part to the evolution of the business and wellness policies. Just ask superstar Billy Graham. Wrestling is drastically different. I agree that the independent contractor designation should be addressed. I agree that health insurance should be addressed, and I think that an off-season would do wonders for everyone involved. Oh yeah, and also about the off-season thing, or wrestling having off-seasons. Like even comparing it, I know I compared it to TV shows, soap operas, and anime. Like even anime has off-season. There'll be like periods where they won't have anime, and that would be the in-between periods where they'd be making it. I guess the TV, whatever, the TV production company or whatever. They're busy making it and writing it and just creating episodes and creating the animation for it. So I guess they're always like working, but at the same time, like even anime has off seasons. Even anime, you'll have like a few, probably like at least several months off, a few months off, like without Naruto episodes. Like so you won't have a Naruto episode for a while. You won't have Dragon Ball episodes for a while, etc. Whatever anime or TV shows you like. They'll still have off seasons, and with wrestling, that's not the case. With wrestling, it's like year round, and I think I gave an idea already. I made a video about it where they can have like a rotation of wrestlers, so you can have like, let's say one wrestler will have a run for like 10 months, and then he'll have 2 months off, and then so like each individuals will have a couple of months off in their contract, so they can at least take some time off. In between tapings and touring and house shows and all of that stuff. So at least in terms of health, they're taking less. They have some more time to take a break, and they have fewer. At least a little bit less injury. Risks in getting injured and stuff like that. So. Let's see, Ace Mano. Ace Mano said, last week tonight versus WWE has a better build than 90% of the Mania 35 matches. That's unfortunate, and that's actually kind of true. What I'm saying? I'm not really crazy about this year's WrestleMania. That's another thing, too, is like I'm not like wild about this year's Mania. What I'm saying? I'm not like crazy hype about it. I guess aside from the Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan WWE title match, which is kind of exciting because we've never seen Kofi Kingston be in that position, and to potentially become the first ever, like, full black, full African champion. We've never seen a black dude at the main event of WrestleMania, or at least somebody who's considered full black, to be at the main event of WrestleMania and competing for the title. In the past, we've seen guys that's kind of headline or co-headline, guys like Mr. T, the guy who faced off against Bam Bam Bigelow, I think Lawrence Taylor, back at a WrestleMania main event back in the mid-90s. Of course, The Rock, guys like Booker T has had title shots and stuff. But we've never had one like Kofi who's competed for the WWE title and has a really, really solid like chance of winning the WWE title and having that, memorable moment. That would be really kind of a cool moment. And so that, that's one exciting moment, but aside from everything else, it's kind of predictable. Like Becky Lynch winning, we can kind of see her winning from like 1,000 miles away, and like Rollins against Lesnar is not that exciting to me. Like, I don't really care. And as far as the other matches, like, Batista against Triple H, it's like, yeah, we've seen it, whatever. I'm sure, like, Triple H is going to end up, winning over Batista because, Batista is on his way out. He's going to retire and all that. So, it just makes sense for, Triple H to be the babyface who goes over and, come out looking like the hero. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode of the Review Space. Thank you guys for watching. That's my opinion on this whole John Oliver versus WWE thing. It is really interesting. I haven't been able to find the full episode, or at least like the full segment, on YouTube. I think it was just taken down. I don't know if it's because of WWE trying to take stuff down that's related to it. But all I saw was the ET Canada segment that they had. That's currently on YouTube as I'm recording this video. So subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell button for the latest notifications, and until next time, peace.